Welcome to Tough Talk. I'm your host, Paul Taros, and today my guest is former Congressman Kerry Bentivolio. Welcome.
Hi, Paul. Nice to be here again.
Well, thank you. So for our viewers, why don't you give a little bit of background about yourself?
Like what do you want to know? I grew up in a family of 5 sons, no sisters, and my father was a factory worker. I put my way through college on a GI Bill. Worked my entire life in the automotive business, pretty much my entire life, and then was part-time and full-time soldier, served in Vietnam and Iraq as a National Guardsman, with a total of 27 years, if you include the time not only active but also inactive Ready Reserve. And ended up with a master's and 5 undergraduate majors. Married my college sweetheart. We had 2 children, and I have 4 grandchildren right now.
Oh,
and they're we like to say, what's the old saying? Grandchildren are, we can spoil them to get even with our kids, right? Something like that. Well, I spoil them quite a bit.
Okay, and then you were a school teacher?
Yes, sir. I was rated highly qualified by the school in the state in vocational as well as general education. I taught English, history, and computer-aided design, and got elected to Congress unexpectedly, but nonetheless got elected. And it was quite an eye-opening experience. You know, a regular guy, finally a regular guy gets elected to Congress, and he goes to Congress and he does a good job. We were rated 2nd most transparent member of Congress. They scored 100% for cutting government waste. A House historian said it was the most effective and successful freshman congressman in 50 years, but it's in the Congressional Journal and it says recent memory. But I asked him why, and he says, well, you know, nobody really has passed 3 pieces of legislation. And you know, I just learned that, you know, the chances of a bill failing in Congress is 99.1%.
Wow.
So 99.1% chance of failure, and I passed 3, which is a record. Nobody in 50 years has done that. And but you know, you always have critics. They always like to beat you up. My wife is my biggest critic. To give you an example, I came home and I showed her, I said, look, out of 435 members of Congress, only 8 scored 100% for cutting government waste, and your husband, yours truly, is at the top of the list. You know what she said? She said, that's because they printed that list alphabetically. So we did a good job. You know, it's actually hard work, but I was named Taxpayer's Friend. I got the Taxpayer's Friend Award from the Taxpayers Union, national organization, the National Federation of Independent Business, which represents small businesses. Said I was a guardian of small business, you know, the mom and pop shops, the gas stations, the party stores, all, you know, family-owned businesses, the independent businesses. I was their friend. I got the top award from the Chamber of Commerce and ended up giving my award back because I don't support amnesty, and they didn't like that.
Okay.
So that's the story, and I'm sticking to it because that is the facts, right? And you know, I just want to mention that if you don't believe some politicians, because nowadays it's hard to believe anything, even the stuff you read in the paper, right? There was a #1 rule I had as a congressman, and that was never lie. And so here it is. This is what we're putting out to voters. This is my report card. It tells who I am and my record in Congress. There's no, it's not political propaganda. It's the facts. And I think that's what people want today, is they want facts. They want the truth. We're so often fooled by slanted press, biased press, fake news, if you will, distortion of truth, things taken out of context. It's time that we send somebody to Washington that believes in truth and common sense.
Okay. Well, since you brought that up, I don't know if you want to talk about it since it's pending litigation.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Do you care to discuss?
Well,
you filed a lawsuit recently against one of your opponents.
Well, if we can't demand integrity and honesty here at home, how can I fight them in Washington? So when somebody starts spreading lies about you and dragging your name through the mud. Enough is enough. I can turn the other cheek when they, poke fun at some of the interesting things I've done in my life with the reindeer, gentleman farmer, and some other things I did that were actually pretty funny. But when you start going after my family or my military record, I'm drawing the line. Now, we asked nicely. This has been over 6 years now they've been doing this. We've turned the other cheek, we ignored it, and then newspaper articles, people come to me and say, hey, he's saying this and saying this. I said, well, enough, it's got to stop. So I talked to my family and friends. I talked to 2 pastors and a priest. I asked them what the best thing to do. I finally went to my Veterans of Foreign Wars post, and I asked my fellow VFW members, I put the cards on the table, here's the affidavits, here's the newspaper articles that were written. What do you guys think I should do? And they all recommended what happened. In fact, they fought over who was going to serve them. So this is, when I came home from Vietnam, we weren't appreciated, we weren't welcomed. We were accused of all kinds of terrible things. At least they acknowledged my service in Vietnam. I posted my DD Form 214, which is the official record, and said, here it is. Now, there it is. I just handed it to somebody and a lawyer, and I said, take care of this because I don't really want to bother with it anymore. Just want to shut it up, get rid of the corruption and misinformation in politics. Don't you think we deserve honest politics? I mean, let's focus on the issues. That's what's important. Now, if you have a criminal record or something like that, fine, but don't make stuff up. And somebody told me that the only reason they're doing that is because they can't really beat me up on the issues. Because every debate I've had, I've won. I was the only Republican who went to a Democrat, if you will. It was a bipartisan debate, but there were 5 Democrats and none of my fellow Republican candidates showed up. I was the only one. And I have this on my phone where they sent me a voicemail saying that I won the debate. But they won't announce that publicly, of course, that the only Republican won the debate against 5 Democrats. And, all you have to do is be truthful and be honest. And if you don't know the answer, tell people. You don't know, but you'll check into it. If you do know the answer, if you had a position and you're not quite sure, tell people you're not sure. You're still checking into it. What's wrong with that? If people believe that politicians have all the answers, well, I got news for them. They don't have all the answers. But if they're diligent and they do like I did, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and work till about 7 o'clock at night, almost 7 days a week, we'll get to the answer, or at least real close to it. And that's what's important. It's about service. It's not about prestige or power or anything like that. It's about representing your constituents.
Okay. So you've had a few Republican debates or forums.
Yes, sir. Well, they're debates. The forum was a nice way of saying a debate. Right?
Okay. And have they had straw polls for those?
Every straw poll they've had, I've won. And it's not because I call people up and say, show up. In fact, the first one, I had no idea that it was a straw poll taking place. The last one, I heard a rumor they didn't have a straw poll because the other candidates complained because I always won them.
Okay.
It's kind of funny, but I don't know how true that is. I wasn't there making that decision, but I heard that actually several times. It was quite funny. Look, everything they say they're going to do, I did already. And we'd like to continue the fight. We want to continue cutting government waste because that's good for Democrats and Republicans. Every bill I sponsored came from an idea or suggestion from one of my constituents. They have a right to come into my office and make a plea. They do. That's why I'm there. And if they want to spend time with me and talk to me for 15 minutes or an hour, we always made time for them. I had Democrats protesting outside my office when I was a congressman. It was kind of funny because this little staffer, Sarah Ledford, I don't know if you remember her.
I remember Sarah.
Great gal, right? And she's about 110 pounds soaking wet. And she called me up on the phone and she said, Congressman, there's a bunch of Democrats protesting outside the office. I said, great, they're exercising their First Amendment rights. Make sure they have coffee, water, and let them use the restroom and tell them if they want, they can make an appointment. and they made an appointment. Now, one person, Democrat, said, "Oh, you called the police on us." No, my office would not call the police, but I do know the story because the tenant next door to our office did call the police because the protesters were blocking their employees' parking space. But we would never do that. In fact, I told them from the very beginning, you get any protests out there, make sure they're treated with respect because they're exercising their First Amendment rights. And I've never turned down intentionally. Now, maybe my staff did, but sometimes staff keeps things from you, and I don't know how that went, but pretty much, anybody could call up their congressman. I'm not so aloof that I don't have time for the very people that I represent. That seems to me to be ridiculous, no matter what their party they represent. Does that make any sense? Or should I be more, no, you're a Democrat, I won't talk to you.
So, do you think you're the favorite among the grassroots?
I have no idea. I know my wife and family, I'm their favorite.
Okay.
But, every time you go around, you have to earn people's respect, and I'm quite used to that. And, I was born with a special spoon in my mouth. It was stainless steel. So I wasn't born with a golden spoon or a silver spoon. I had a stainless steel spoon. So I know what it's like to work for a living and earn the employer's respect as well as people's respect.
Okay. So there's one candidate who is, from what I understand, very well financed.
Yeah, well, they all are compared to me. We haven't taken any PAC money because it hasn't been offered. The rule is, there's the political elites. Basically, we're told that if you donate to the Bentivolio campaign or a candidate who's running for governor, you won't be allowed in our offices anymore. And that's a death sentence for a lobbyist. If they have PAC money, they're going to just, okay, we'll stay out of this one. And that's what's happening. So I'm getting donations. We're getting all the money we need to get our report card out. That's this. And we finally got enough money to get signs. And I've been there, done that, and here's the facts. If this is what you want, if you want the facts and you want somebody who's going to work for you, there's only one choice. You can have these other people who let's just put it this way. I never voted to raise the debt ceiling. I never voted to raise taxes. I wouldn't tarnish the office. I wouldn't surprise anybody, and I wouldn't lie to anybody. Even Boehner liked that. And Pelosi, well, you can't really carry on a conversation with Pelosi, but they knew that I was a straight shooter. I was a regular guy. And it was refreshing for most of them in Washington because, hey, he's got some really great ideas. Look, we passed 3 pieces of legislation. And they say, oh, he's too conservative for Michigan. Well, or the 11th district. Well, okay, I'm conservative. Yes, I am. 93% conservative rating. But yet, I could find common ground with my Democratic opponents and both the moderates and the more conservative Republicans. That's what a teacher does in a classroom. Every single day, they have kids from every background you can imagine with emotional things going on, especially teenagers, highs and lows, emotional highs and lows. And yet, we can get them to focus on a common project or mission, which is to do an assignment. And you don't get 100% sometimes, but some you can't win no matter what. But yeah, I have some experience doing that. And I use that technique that every teacher knows to get everybody focused on the common cause. And that's what it's all about. And I did that as a soldier, too. We have to give the soldiers a mission. We all have to, and they come from a variety of backgrounds. So political differences, religious differences, skin color. I went to Iraq with a unit from Detroit, and we didn't lose a man. We had a great commander, probably one of the best I've ever worked for. And I helped him make sure that we focused on the mission, took care of everybody, and brought everybody home. That's a sign of a great commander.
Okay. Curious, how would you have voted on the very large, over $1 trillion omnibus bill that
That's a
recently got
great
passed?
question. Okay, when I first met Speaker Boehner, we had a nice chat. And he told me about his background. And I said, Mr. Speaker, and I've said this earlier, I won't lie to you, it won't surprise you, I won't tarnish the office. I won't vote to raise the debt ceiling, I won't vote to raise taxes, and I won't vote for a multi-issue bill. I found out later it's called an omnibus bill, but what did I know, third day on the job or whatever it was. And when I left, he said, I kept my promise. I never surprised him. I didn't lie to him. We didn't always agree, but he's not going to be surprised. He is the Speaker of the House, right? You have to respect the office. And I respected him, and I thought he was pretty funny, too. He was a funny guy, and privately. And we got things done, and he told me how to get some things done and helped me along the way. He kind of mentored me a little bit, but from his perspective, right? And then we had the Liberty folks, and then we had the Democrats, right? So I never voted for an omnibus bill, so if that helps you, we'll never vote for another one. I'm all about single issue bills. Every single bill should be judged on its own merits. I also sponsored a bill called Read the Bills Act. Every congressman should have an ample opportunity to read the bills they're going to vote for. Now, I read the majority of the bills, not all of them, but the majority of the bills. And some of them they sprang on me, and I didn't even know they were coming up for a vote, which is kind of unfortunate. But every bill should have at least 7 days. I should have at least 7 days to review the bill. And if you change one punctuation mark or one word or a period, whatever, I need another 7 days. And it should be very clear, if you're going to amend this bill, tell me what you're taking out and what you want to insert in its place. What's wrong with that? It's common sense. And you know how many co-sponsors I got? I don't think I got more than 5.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like they don't want people to know. And so I was rated the second most transparent member of Congress. I got a 100% score for cutting government waste, passed 3 bills. This is how you get things done. And I left there with, I think, the majority of Congress. And I have all their cell phone numbers, their personal cell phones. And they know that Kerry's a straight shooter. If I'm going to tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if I find later that you fooled me, well, shame on you, right? And that's something you do not want to do. You have to be straight shooter all the time. A lot of people make the mistake of saying one thing and doing another. If I made a mistake, and I did, I co-sponsored a bill, and I told the gentleman I would co-sponsor it, and then I got a chance to read the bill. And I marched myself down to his office, and I knocked on his door and got the appointment. And I apologized. I says, if you want me on this as a co-sponsor, I'll be on it. But after reading it, I have a little problem with this, this, and this. And if you could change that, I could still be on the bill. But if you don't want to change it for whatever reason, I'd understand. But I'd like to get off. And he let me off. The same with the bill on chairman of a committee. He wanted my vote, and he didn't really need my vote, but it was something that I was very concerned about. And I told him, if he needed my vote, I'll be there. But quite honestly, I don't really want to be on it. And if he would give me permission, now I wouldn't have voted for it anyway, but I at least told them I wasn't going to support the bill. And he gave me a pass. And after that was no hard feelings. Kerry, no surprises. Just tell them. And that's carries so much. Your integrity in Washington means a great deal. And I left with that integrity. I was the only member of Congress to serve in both Vietnam and Iraq. And according to the official military liaison office on Capitol Hill, they checked my DD Form 214, said I was the most decorated member of Congress. So the only member of Congress to serve in both Vietnam and Iraq, and the most decorated. So I thought that was a great honor, but the key thing was, wow, I get to be a congressman and represent the people of the 11th district, and this is where I grew up. I never dreamed of that, right? And all of a sudden I'm there and doing the job. And there are a lot of jealous people back home didn't like that, and they were doing everything they could to ruin something good. They should have jumped on the bandwagon, because we could have done a heck of a lot more and got a lot more done for the people of the 11th district. But a lot of people were, as you know and are quite aware, were a little, regular people, they said, like Kerry Bentivolio shouldn't be a congressman. That's for us. I don't know who us is, but it really isn't. That's not how it's supposed to be.
Okay. You mentioned you were the second most transparent.
Yes.
Who was number one?
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't. I should check. It's the second time I've had that question. I'll check when I get to it. I'm so busy now going door to door, knocking on doors. Been in Highland, Commerce, trying to get over here to Birmingham and knock on people's door. And I get back on their door and I said, look, I'm Kerry Bentivolio, running for office again. By the way, if you have any questions for me, let's hook me up to a lie detector. You can ask me anything you want. It's so fun to talk to people, really.
So it's a very big district. I mean, it kind of wraps around. So what are the communities that the 11th serves?
Well, it's Troy. I remember when it was just an airport out there with a factory, and now it's, my dad used to take me hunting out there for pheasant. But we have Troy, North Happiquash, Auburn Hills, a little bit of Rochester Hills. We have not Kego Harbor, but Lake Angeles. We have West Bloomfield, Birmingham, part of West Bloomfield, all of Birmingham. I'm going to forget one, I know it. I did say Auburn Hills, right? Yeah, Auburn Hills.
Okay.
White Lake, Waterford, Commerce. Let's see, then we're going to go to Highland. We're going to go to Milford, of course, and we're going to go to South Lyon, Wixom, Wolverine Lake, Farmington, but not Farmington Hills, but Farmington. Then we go to Livonia, Northville, both Oakland, Northville, Wayne. And we have Plymouth, I did say South Lyon, Lyon Township. And then we have Livonia and Canton. And I probably missed one, but not intentional because, I remember growing up. This is where I grew up. This is my stomping ground, right? This is where my brothers and I, as we were, like I said, I have 5 brothers, and we were, we didn't get in any real trouble, but we were well known for being rabble-rousers, right? But nothing vicious or vindictive or anything like that. So it was, yeah. So, in fact, my brothers and I went Canadian fishing this past August. We went to Canada and got to get together again. We brought my son went, my nephew went, the 2 boys in the family, and we caught some big fish. My brother caught a 36-inch pike. I mean, that was, if you ask me a question, I'll never lie to you unless you ask me what size fish I caught the last time I went fishing. Well, this is measured out. Whatever 36 inches was. And he got it mounted. It cost him $600.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that fish cost you $600. And he almost lost his life catching it because it was a storm that day and the waves were. He said him and his son were feared for their life, but they brought it in. And it was a wonderful trip. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Okay. So you mentioned, the other candidates have more money. And I was at one of your debates or forums where the issue came up and you had a very good answer to that.
Well, if we're going to base our votes on how much money we have, why don't we just skip the primary and show everybody our checkbooks? It's if that's what it takes, if it's about the money, then really I don't want any part of it because it's not about the money. It's about people really need to do their homework. If they do the research, they're going to find a lot of political propaganda, mud stuff. But if they can look past that, like we're asking people, look, I served my country in 2 wars. Here's my DD Form 214. I posted it on the website, right? Because of the allegations that so we're just telling everybody, you want to hook me up to a lie detector, fine, okay? But what they tend to do is they take things, political consultants do this. They take things out of context, they spin it, and we all know the spin, political spin. They won't tell people the truth, the whole truth, and I have a real problem with that because people can handle the truth. They're starved for the truth. They're sick and tired of fake news. They're sick and tired of the mudslinging in politics. They realize I am too. But I'm a pretty tough guy. I fought in 2 wars, been through a bunch of congressmen in Washington said that was probably the worst election, or the mudslinging was the worst they've ever seen. And I withstood it. It's turning the other cheek. I mean, they called me a 9/11 truther because I was in a movie that a student did when I was, he was one of my students. And they said, oh, you must be a 9/11 truther because you were in the movie. I said, well, if you really believe the actor is the character he plays, don't invite Anthony Hopkins to dinner. He made me dinner, right? It's so funny. And I'm sitting there laughing at this. I'm really into their heads, right? And they're so obsessed with this. We got to find something wrong with them so we can tell everybody. Really? Why don't you just get on a bandwagon and help me be more successful? Imagine that, a guy who, you've been handed a gift. Here's a guy who served his country in 2 wars, never been arrested, really no controversy, I mean, just living life, right? Happily married for 41 years, well, most of that time, I'd say 99.9% of the time. I married my college sweetheart. I have 2 wonderful kids. One graduated top of her class at Country Day on a scholarship to go to Country Day. And my son's pretty much just as smart, started his own business, worked it 5 years, sold it and retired. Now he's out in Colorado working for Vail Corporation, fixing their snow grooming machines, right? And he's moving right up the ladder. And my wife's been a nurse for 41 years. So what's wrong with that? Oh, we had reindeer in our backyard. Oh, he's a reindeer farmer. He must be crazy. Really? Crazy is when the people of Michigan tell you no on raising a gas tax and you go and raise it anyway. Crazy is, hugging a senior citizen while you're taxing their pension. Well, you vote to tax the pension. Crazy is telling people you're supporting the Republican Party when you live in another district and you decide to run here. I don't get this. Why can't you just tell the truth? People will love you more if they find you are truthful. I mean, I will. I don't care if you made a few mistakes. So what? People make mistakes. We're all human. If you want a perfect candidate, I got news for you. Jesus Christ isn't running. But if you re-elect me, he'll be well represented.
Okay. Real quick, we
Yes,
have
sir.
just a few seconds left. There's a big issue about real ID. Are you familiar with that?
That's more of a state issue, I think. If they
Well,
wanted-
it's being mandated by the federal government
why are they getting their hands in it?
that you're going to need this in order to fly.
Oh.
So if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to fly. And I know Michigan is letting you have the option of getting real ID or holding on to your traditional driver's license, but without real ID, you're not going to be able to board a plane. So in like one sentence.
I don't know. I'd have to study the pros and cons.
Okay.
Okay. I really don't know the answer to that. I haven't spent a lot of time looking into that. It's not really an issue people are concerned with that I've talked to. But if it comes before me, believe me, we'll have a round table on it.
Okay. Well, with that, we're going to have to wrap
Paul,
up.
it's a real pleasure to see you again.
thank you.
And God bless you on your race. Good luck to you.
Best of luck to you.
Tell everybody here, thank you. You guys are doing a great job. And thank you, 11th District.